I'm Dr. Rich Ballana, host of the Conquering Your Stress podcast. In this, the 29th podcast in this series, I'm going to continue our discussion of reduce, one of the 5 R's of coping. In this podcast, I'll explore the different categories of stressors and explain how each of the categories impacts your ability to cope. There are 3 categories of stressors. Category 1 stressors are things that are foreseeable but can be controlled. Category 2 stressors are things that are foreseeable but cannot be controlled. And Category 3 stressors are things that are neither foreseeable nor controllable. Category 1 stressors are stressors that you know about in advance and you have some time to work on and figure out how you're going to cope with them. For instance, if you know that driving in a crowded big city such as New York City is very stressful, but you have to go into the city, you can choose not to drive there. If you wish to visit, you could use public transportation, you could carpool, or you could figure out some other way to get in. So you can foresee the stressor and you can exert some control over it. Category 2 stressors are those that are foreseeable but cannot be controlled. These types of stressors require different coping strategies to manage because you can't control or avoid them. An example of this kind of stressor might be having to wait in line for a couple of hours to buy tickets to a concert that you really want to go to. Now, you're generally stressed by waiting in line for hours at a time, but this is the only way you can purchase the tickets, and you really, really want to go to this concert. The only way the tickets are being sold is on a first-come, first-served basis in person. So, although this stressor is foreseeable, you really can't control or avoid it. Now, Category 3 stressors are stressors that are neither foreseeable nor controllable. And these are the ones that catch you completely off guard. An example of this type of stressor would be a traffic jam caused by a major accident. Imagine that you left your house a half an hour early to go somewhere, and you're really making good time driving on a 3-lane highway. And then as you kind of get to the top of this hill and you come down the other side, you see that traffic is at a complete standstill. The cars are already filled in behind you, and you can't go forward and you can't go backward. You turn on the radio and you learn from the news that there's been a 10-car pileup and traffic is backed for 5 miles and approximately 2 to 3 hours. You could neither foresee this happening nor could you control it. So you're literally stuck. And the best way to start managing your stress is to start keeping track of the categories of your stressors. And the best way to do that is to keep a stressor diary. Now, after a couple of weeks of keeping track of your stressors, you can look for patterns in the kinds of things that cause you stress, and then you can put them into categories. And you can look for different types of stressors, like different kinds of people, different types of situations, or different combinations of events that cause you stress, and then categorize them as Category 1, 2, or 3. And as you begin to keep track of the different things that cause you stress, you can start to anticipate when you're going to be stressed by looking at the patterns and looking at the way your life is flowing. And if you note the control of the occurrence, of Category 1 stressors, you can start to formulate a plan in advance for trying to avoid being exposed to them in the first place or modify your exposure somehow. If you can't control the occurrence of Category 2 stressors, but they're still going to play a part in your life and you can see them coming, rather than trying to avoid these, you can practice acceptance, and you can learn how to accept the situation and somehow modify your exposure to it, even though you still must be exposed to it. And because you can't really do much in advance to prepare for Category 3 stressors, they're rarely going to show up on a regular basis in your stressor diary, but you will see the Category 3 stressors pop up because they simply are things that happen in your life and they're beyond your ability to control. Now, when these Category 3 stressors crop up in your life, because they occur unexpectedly and there's nothing you can do about them, you need to really adapt to them and accept them and kind of just go with the flow, and rather than try and fight them or try and look at alternative ways to control them, the best way to deal with Category 3 stressors is really to accept them. Now, key to stress management is trying to not get overly upset about the Category 3 stressors, because they're the things that are beyond your control completely. Rather than waste that energy, spend that energy obsessing about Category 3 stressors, you're better off really channeling that energy into trying to do what you can do to modify and control Category 1 and 2 stressors that you have some degree of control over. I hope this was helpful, and I look forward to working with you again next month.